Hey y'all, welcome to part 9 of the Vectric for Absolute Beginners series. Now, although I'm using Aspire version 12.010 for this demonstration, everything I'm going to show you in this video works exactly the same way in Cut2D Desktop and Pro, VCarve Desktop and Pro, and Aspire. Now in this video, we're going to dive into creating closed vectors. If you're unsure of what a closed vector is, I'm going to refer you back to one of my CNC for Absolute Beginners videos titled What is a Vector? And I put a link to that video down in the description box of this video. And I'll put another link in an information card up here right about now. Now we're going to concentrate our attention over here under the Create Vector section in the Design tab. And we're going to focus on these 5 icons right here. And we're going to begin with the most basic, which is drawing a circle. So I'll click on this icon, and we open up the Draw Circle form. Now there are several ways of drawing a circle. The easiest and most basic is to come out here onto the design space, and you'll see that my cursor has changed to a circle, an X, Y position readout, and a small crosshair. The crosshair represents the center point of our circle, and it's where we're going to draw that circle from. So, for instance, if I want to start my circle on X0, Y0, I can bring my cursor down here to X0, Y0, left-click and hold that left mouse button, and drag in any direction. Now you'll notice that I have a diameter reading here, and that's going to increase as I pull out, and it'll decrease as I pull in. The reason it's set for diameter is, I'll let go of my left mouse button, is because up here in the form, that's what I have this set at. I will Control Z to undo that. If I want to create a circle based on its radius, I can click on Radius, come back out here, and again click and hold my left mouse button, and I'm now reading the radius of my circle. And I'll release my mouse button. So a circle can be drawn from a radius or a diameter. And again, clicking and dragging is the easiest way to create a circle. Another easy way to create a circle, if you know the position where you want that circle to be, you can enter your XY coordinates. So if I want a circle at X2, Y -2, and I want it to have a diameter of 1 inch, I can enter those coordinates and that size, then click Create, and it places my circle where I want it. The center of this circle, if you can see my readouts, is X2, Y -2. Now, that's within the 2D view. Let's close this, and we'll Control Z to undo that. We can also draw circles in the 3D view. This is something new to version 12.0. We'll go into our Draw Circle form, same as we did, and I can come out here and you'll see I have the position readout, same as before. And I can come down here, and thanks to Smart Snapping, I have index lines to show me that I'm at X, Y, 0. Now I can just click and create a circle that has a 1-inch diameter, but you notice my readout shows the radius. That's something to keep in mind. Now, if I click and drag a circle, it's displaying the diameter because that's what I have selected in the form. But if I go to edit that circle, it's displaying the radius. Now, I can edit this circle by either coming up here in this field and highlighting that and typing in a new radius, and then hit enter, and it now takes on that radius. A 2.5-inch radius will give me a 5-inch diameter. Or I can take this control handle and I can edit the radius this way. If I want to come back and edit a circle I have already created here in the 3D view, what I'll have to do is come up to that circle, hold down the Shift key, and click on that circle, and that brings me back into the edit field. I can edit the radius of that circle. I can change the location of that circle by bringing my cursor into the center and click. And if I know the area that I want it to be, for instance, x2, y -2, tap enter, it moves the center to that position. Alternatively, I can click on that center square and hold, then drag that circle anywhere I want it to be. So, again, you can edit and draw circles in the 3D view. Place them wherever you'd like. In either the 2D view or the 3D view, if you know the diameter of the circle that you want to draw, you can enter that diameter here, then just come out onto your material and click, 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 and place those circles. So, that's how easy it is to draw a circle in the 3D view and the 2D view. Now, the next icon under Create Vectors is Draw Ellipse. Now, we'll go ahead and click on that icon, and it has a very similar form. And these controls work very similar to the Draw Circle tool. The only difference being is we have the ability to select a width and an ability to set a height if we know what size ellipse we want to draw. If we're not sure, and the easiest way to draw an ellipse, and much like the circle, my cursor has changed out here, the only difference being instead of a circle above the crosshairs, we have an ellipse. Well, again, the easiest way to draw an ellipse is to come to the position where we want the center of our ellipse to be, click and hold the left mouse button, and drag that ellipse out. Now, we have a little bit more control with this tool. If I pull straight sideways, I can extend or reduce the width of this ellipse. If I pull up or down, I can extend or reduce the height of the ellipse. And if I drag on a diagonal, I can increase or reduce both at the same time. So let's say I've got my ellipse kind of set up the way I want to. I'll release the mouse button and our ellipse has been drawn. Now what that's done is that has put a width in X up here in our form and a height in Y up here in our form. And if that's the size of ellipse that I want, I can continue making ellipses by putting my cursor where I want the center to be and just click. And I can do that as often as I need in whatever position I want. To edit an ellipse that I've already created, I have to hold down Shift and click that ellipse. Then I can come back up here in the form and make any changes that I want to make And once those changes have been made over here in the form, I come over here and click Apply, and those changes will be applied to my ellipse down here. And to close out of the form, I just click the Close button. Now from here, if I want to edit an ellipse, I can select that ellipse, then hit the letter E on my keyboard, and it will bring up the Draw Ellipse form, and now I can modify this size, click Apply, and it makes that modification. We'll close out of the form. In the 3D view, we have very similar controls. We'll click on Draw Ellipse, and again, I can come out here to the center of my material, and my guides appear to show me I'm at the center, and I can drag an ellipse. Then once again, we have the editable fields showing up for my height and my width. And if that's the size of ellipse that I want, I can just let go of my left cursor, and there we have it. Now, these controls are a little bit different than in the 2D view. Here, I can enter a size that I want. If I want 5.0, then tap Enter. And if I go back to this handle and click on it, I can bring these fields back up. And I'll say 2.0 and tap Enter. Now I've modified the size and everything is fine. Alternately, if I want to modify the size proportionally, I can grab a hold of one of these handles in any of the four corners, and that will drag that ellipse, but maintaining that proportion that I set when I set these sizes. And it doesn't matter which way I drag it. I can go one way or another. If I want to move the position of my ellipse, I can go right over this center button here, and I can move it to wherever I need it. If I want to change the height of my ellipse, but I want this top point to stay in one place, I can drag this bottom point here. If I want to change the height from the top but leave the bottom point anchored, I can do that here. And the same holds true with editing the length. I can go from this spot to this spot. But again, I've changed my proportionality. So I can adjust here, 5.0, Enter, and I can adjust here, 2.5, Enter. And if I've got the size of ellipse that I want, I can create more ellipses of the same size by simply clicking anywhere within the design. So that's how we draw an ellipse in the 2D view and in the 3D view. Now the next icon up here under Create Vectors is this one right here, Draw Rectangle. And you're going to notice a lot of similarities in all of these different forms. Here we have an anchor point where what we're going to draw this rectangle based on if we choose to enter an XY coordinate. If we kind of know where we want our rectangle to start from, we can just come out here and click and drag and start creating our rectangle. And in fact, that's the easiest way to draw a rectangle. We can come out here, for example, and click at X0, Y0. Just click here and hold my left mouse button and drag out a rectangle this way. But if you'll notice, that is anchored the rectangle from the top left corner. It's not anchored it from the center. I'll let go of my left mouse button now. And it's created a rectangle right here. It's not anchored it from the center. Well, this anchor point only works when you are using your X and Y coordinates to place a rectangle, which we can. I can enter, well, I'll just enter x0, y0, then click apply, and that's moved that created rectangle to that position. It's placed the center of that that rectangle to my x0, y0. If I want to move it somewhere else, I can do that, and it's moved the center up to my x6, y6. Now I'm going to undo that. From here, I can adjust the size of this rectangle by coming back over here into my form and making adjustments here and click apply. I can close out the form and go into move and transform mode. And from here, I can grab any of these white hollow points and modify this rectangle. So if I come over to this one right here and start pulling, it's going to pull in proportion, but the rectangle is anchored by that opposite point. Alternatively, if I click and drag this hollow point, it's going to anchor at this point, and I'm making the rectangle larger in proportion while anchoring it at that top right corner. We Control Z to undo both of those changes. If I come and grab one of these center points over here, click and drag, I'm making that square or that rectangle longer or shorter. If I grab one of the bottom, it's going to anchor it at the top, and I can make it taller or shorter. And if I grab from the top, it's going to anchor it at the bottom, making it taller or shorter. If I want to edit the size or style of this rectangle, I can select it and then tap the letter E for edit on my keyboard, and it'll open up the draw rectangle form. Then I can edit this rectangle. If I'm happy with this size and I just want to create a few more rectangles of this size and style, I can just come out and click anywhere else on my material, and it's going to place those rectangles. Let me Control Z to undo all that, and I'll close out my form. Let's jump over into the 3D view. I'll select this rectangle, and we'll start over. We'll go into the Draw Rectangle form, and here in my 3D view, I can click and drag a rectangle, and notice we have a little bit more information here. It's telling me what my size is as I drag this rectangle out. So I've got a 5-inch wide by 3-inch tall rectangle just by drawing it and paying attention to these two scales. Now, just like the Draw Ellipse tool, if I want to change this to make it 6 inches long, I can type in 6 and hit enter. If I want to get back into those fields to be able to change the height of my rectangle, I can do it one of two ways. I can come over here and just hover my mouse over this corner handle, and I can see what those measurements are. But if I leave to try to come over here and type, I can't do it. If I click on that handle, I can come up here to this one, and I can change and tap enter. Now, let me Control Z twice to undo that. If I want to change them both at the same time, and this works the same way with the ellipse tool, I can come over here and click on this corner handle, and we're going to look at the X measurement first. It always goes in alphabetical order. X, then Y. So we've got our X field my cursor's there. I can highlight that number and put in 6. Now to move up to this number, I hit the Tab key. It moved my cursor up here, and it made that modification. So now I can change to 4. Now I'll hit Enter, and it's made that change. If we look over here in our form, we can see that the width in X and the height in Y have changed. Much like all the other tools, if I want to move my rectangle, I can come over this center point, click, and drag to wherever I want it. Now we've got one more control here within the Draw Rectangle form, and that is our corner type. And we can access that with this handle right here. Now, as it's currently set, we have square corners. But if I decide that I want an external radius, I can click this handle and start dragging, and you can see I'm creating an external radius on my rectangle. All 4 corners are changing. And if I would like, I can get in here and create a more accurate radius. If I grab this handle and I pull out beyond square corners, I've now switched over to an internal radius. And here I can do the same thing. I can start pulling in, then come over here, and I can draw a more accurate corner radius, remembering this is a negative number. So I've got to keep it a negative number, then tap Enter, and that gives me this corner radius. And again, if I've decided that this is the size and the shape that I want, I can create as many of them as I need by just simply clicking out in the field. Control Z to undo those. And to close out of the form, I just click Close. And again, to get into it and edit, I can select it, type the letter E, and that brings me back into the Draw Rectangle form. Back over in the 2D view, I also have control over these corners by using these green points out here. If I want to drag it in and make an external radius, I can do that. But notice I can only drag my radius in to the point to where this radius right here is equal to half of the height of my rectangle in total. My height in Y is 4 inches. The max external radius I can get is 2. But if I drag out this way, I then move into my internal radiuses. Now to set a number, a specific number here, I have to come up here and type it in the form. So that's how we draw a rectangle in the 2D view and in the 3D view. Now the next icon that we have up here under Create Vectors is the 4th one, which is Draw Polygon. Now if we click on this icon and go into the Draw Polygon tool, we can see that the first thing we have in the form is the number of sides of our polygon. Now we can either increase the number of sides here or decrease the number of sides using the arrows, or we can just highlight the number that's already in there and type in a number of our own. And the easiest way, again, to draw this polygon is to start where you want your center point to be, click and drag, and we will drag this polygon to the size that we're looking for. And once we've reached that size that we want, we just release the left mouse button and our polygon is created. Now, there's a difference with drawing a polygon and the other tools in that we can either draw our polygon based on the radius or the side length. And what I mean by that is the radius from the center of the polygon's bounding box to the points of the polygon. Or we can adjust the side length. If we need these sides to be 6 inches long, for example, we can go ahead and enter 6.0 and click apply. And our radius has changed, but that's not an issue. Our sides are now 6 inches long. Even though we've created this polygon as a 3-sided object, we can still go back into the number of sides, and we can change that, if we wish, from a triangle to a pentagon. And I'll click apply. Now when we did that, we also changed the side length and the radius. So if I need to make sure that my sides are 3 inches long, I can do that here. And click apply. And my polygon is changed. And again, to close out of the form, we just click the close button. Or if I want to draw more pentagons of this same size, I can just click anywhere out here in the field, and those polygons are created. Once again, just like all of the other tools, if I want to edit a polygon, I just select it, tap the letter E on my keyboard, and we go back into the Draw Polygon tool. Once I have done my edits to this one, if I need to edit another polygon, I can put my cursor over that polygon, hold down Shift, then click on that polygon, and that's the polygon we'll edit. And I can bring that over here and do my edit. So that's within the 2D view. Within the 3D view, it's pretty much like all of the other tools. Again, we'll go over here into Draw Polygon. And again, we've set our number of sides. And we go to where we want the center of that polygon to be drawn from. Click and drag. And again, we can see that we're working with the radius. So we pull out until our radius is the size that we want. And release. Once again, we have a choice. From here, we can edit the radius, or if we prefer, we can edit the side length. So if we want 3.5-inch sides, then click apply. Alternately, let me drag that out. Alternately, we could come in, select these, 3.0, and hit enter, and it makes the same edit. So I can either apply or I can hit enter, and it will make that change. Again, I can change my radius here, and I can change my location here. No matter what I do here, if I want to change the number of sides, I can do so. Up here, click apply, and I've gone from a pentagon to an octagon. And the same editing criteria apply. I can either adjust my radius or I can adjust my side length. So that's how you draw a polygon in the 2D view and 3D view. Now the last icon we're going to cover up here under Create Vectors is the 5th one, Draw Star. Now whether you're in the 2D view or 3D view, the first thing you'll want to do in the Draw Star form is to set the number of points on your star. And much like the others, we can control that with the arrows here, or we can highlight the number and just type in the number of points that we want. Then from here, the easiest way to draw a star is to come out to where you want the center point of your star bounding box to be, click and drag, just like the other tools. And here, in the 2D view, we do have a readout under the cursor that is showing the outer radius of the star. Now what the outer radius is from the center of that star to any of these 5 points. That radius is going to be the same. Now we also have an inner radius, and that is the distance from the center to these inside points. And that can be controlled here, separately from the outer radius. And again, this is in the 2D view. I can change the number here, then click Apply, and that's going to increase, because I went larger, that's going to increase the distance from the center point to that inner star. Now, in the 2D view, this can only be controlled here. So I'll have to change my radius as kind of a trial error type of a thing to see what I want when it comes to the inner radius of my star. I can close out the form, then I can increase or decrease the size of the star using any of these points out here, the same as any of the other tools within the Create Vectors section. But in the 3D view, things get a little more interesting. So let's go ahead and delete this star. We'll jump over into 3D view, and we'll click on our Draw Star form. I've got the number of points set, and I'll come down here to the center of my material, and I'm going to click and I'm going to drag, and it's giving us an outer radius. I'm going to come down till I get to 3-inch outer radius, then I'll release. Now here we have 2 control handles. I'm in the field right here. I can set my outer radius. Let's say I want it to be 3.5. Then I can hit the enter button and that change is made. But here within the 3D view, I can also change my inner radius. And my inner radius is not by the percentage. So I can change that if I want my inner radius to be, for instance, 1.3. I can set that to 1.3, tap enter, and it's changed my radius. If I'm not really bothered about the number, but I want to go for a certain style, I can just adjust until I get the look that I'm going for. And again, I can adjust the size. Just like all of the other tools, if I want to change the position, I can grab that center square and move that star to wherever I need. And if I want to create duplicates of the exact same size and shape, I can just click out here in my material field and create those stars. Again, if I need to go in and edit a star that I've already created still within the form, I put my cursor over that star, hold down Shift, click it, and now I can edit this star. So you have a little bit more control out here within the 3D view than you have in the 2D view when it comes to creating stars. So that's about all there is to it when it comes to creating these closed vectors using the top 5 icons within the Create Vectors section of the Design tab. In my next video, we'll get into these 3 icons here, and we'll get into drawing open vectors. So I hope you got something out of this video. And if you did, I do hope you'll give it a thumbs up. Now, I know there's no way I covered every question you may have about creating or editing closed vectors within the Vectric software. So this afternoon at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, I'll be hosting a live Q&A session where you can ask me any question you'd like about anything that I've covered in this video. Again, that's today at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, right here on my YouTube channel, and I've put a link to that live Q&A session down in the description box of this video. Now, before we wrap this up, I'd like to give a special shout out and say a special thank you to all of my channel members. Thank you, channel members. I appreciate your continued support. If you would like information on how to become a channel member, just click that little join button down below this video panel. A panel will pop up and a video will play that'll tell you all about channel membership. So, I hope to see you all this afternoon for the live Q&A session. And as always, whether you subscribe to my channel or not, whether you become a channel member or not, I'd like to thank you very much for taking the time to watch, and y'all take care.